Ready Eddies.
The ready, Eddie.
All right, homie. Hey, happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth. So, funny, I like how I'm already derailing this really quick, by the way. So, I was talking to my cousin yesterday and his wife, and she's like, yeah, we had a guy walk into JCPenney asking where our Juneteenth collection was. And I was like, wait, hold on. You guys have a Juneteenth collection?
Wow.
And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, ah. And I'm like, I can't imagine that. I'm not saying that Juneteenth is not like a valid thing. It sure is.
Yep.
But like, I can't imagine like a white person walking around with like a Happy Juneteenth shirt. It feels very like highly specific.
I saw people today asking online if anybody was selling Juneteenth shirts. So, good. We need more holidays.
Yeah?
June. I mean, there's Flag Day, but that's not real.
No, that's a fake holiday.
It's a fake holiday. So, I am all for...
But you know what banner should be flying?
The black and red banner.
The black and red banners.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It is boop boop boo-doo-doop boop boo-doo-doop boo time, everybody.
Yes, it is.
Long awaited.
Jesus fucking Christ. Not even on the note, not even on the cadence. Damn.
But that's just how you know. That's just how you know what it is.
That's how you know what it is.
Yes, House of the Dragon Season 2.
Season 2.
Episode 1.
It's been not 1 week.
It's been 2 years since we saw this show.
Holy shit, dude.
Was it at the same time of year?
That's a fantastic question.
Let's look up.
And we probably should have looked that up.
Do this research.
But it wasn't not like maybe fall, I think. But
August 21st, 2022.
So summer.
Yeah, late summer. The school year had started.
School year had just started. I remember talking to my coworkers about this. I have a coworker, my work mom. She watches like all the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
She watches this. She watches like some good shit. And I remember, like, it's not that I wasn't excited to watch Game of Thrones, and I'm not even saying that it was like that season 8 of Game of Thrones like bummed me out too much that I didn't care. I was just like, I don't know that I want to get invested into another like show that is probably going to be like
it was coming in sus, and this was also while I think it had already released a few episodes by this point. But this is also while Rings of Power was also premiering. So you had two highly questionable shows about swords and armor and fantasy.
Which, I mean, you could make the argument that like it just means it's a good time to be like a fantasy nerd.
It was a good time to be a nerd. I think while like the fandom menace, as they are called, did exist back then. I don't think they reached like their peak back then. So I think it was a very good time to be a nerd. It was like a bump in the Nvidia stock price, don't you know?
This is not financial advice.
No.
Especially because we need to get in first.
Yes.
Yeah. You guys can come in like a month later.
Exactly.
Anyway, so let's go ahead and like kind of talk a little bit about this. Like, why are we talking? We didn't
cover season 1.
Granted, we didn't have our podcast in season 1.
Are we not 2 years old yet?
I think we started after this.
Let's see. Let's find the Moonfall date. But while I'm finding the Moonfall date, we need to do an anniversary Moonfall special at some point.
Shit, we were. Yeah, Moonfall came out 2022, February.
All right, so we were on the air.
But we also weren't covering like full seasons, really.
Correct.
We covered How I Met Your Mother.
We hadn't done TV.
We hadn't done like really a lot of TV.
Yeah.
Which is a series long.
Jesus Christ. But I think we're here. Well, A, because I suggested it, but
for sure.
But then B also, like, because Game of Thrones like fucking dope, and like back to what we were talking about earlier, like everybody had like various degrees of trepidation to like the first season of Hot D, but I think that show like it hit the ground running.
It for sure did.
We got the good director to be the showrunner.
Yeah.
Like, let's go, everybody.
Let's go.
And you know what? It is probably. I'll be zero hyperbolic on this. Probably the biggest comeback in TV history, bar none. JK. But I mean, to go from such a low point and then bring back something respectable
And it's kind of crazy. I was talking to my friend Nick about this. He kind of mentioned, he was like, "Yeah, I watched Game of Thrones," and he's like, "I watched it at the end and I fucking loved it."
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think it is a matter of like we had been watching this shit since season 2. We talked about we've been watching season 2, and you just watched as like that.
As in, he loved season 8.
As in, like, he wasn't like as burned by it.
Oh yeah, I would imagine.
And I think it's the same problem that people who got into The Walking Dead past, like where I dropped off.
Yeah.
Where people just kind of binged the shit out of everything and then made that farm season not be like one of the worst fucking things you've ever seen.
That helps.
I think it helps.
I was watching The Acolyte last night, and I was like, this show either needs longer, more consistently lengthed episodes.
I have not seen last night's episode yet.
Or it's fine, but or needs to be a binge.
Yeah.
I think there is something that binging does to the quality of a piece of media that really helps.
But I think that's also a testament, though, to how good this show actually is, because, like, you can still get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
If you're watching it collectively.
Collectively.
Not collectively, sorry. As it premieres.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the show is, and I think that is the best. Like, as Game of Thrones, lest we forget, was an event. I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure you saw the thing that was going around Twitter and Reddit when the House of the Dragon episode date premiered, where someone was outside of an apartment building that may have even been Chicago, and you could just see, like, everybody's windows, like, had a TV on, and then, like, you saw, like, the HBO.
Oh, that's fucking nuts.
Like, all at the same time.
That's fucking nuts.
We haven't, and we probably never will, have something
like this.
Like the entertainment phenomenon that Game of Thrones was. So...
And still is. Like, people were so excited about this.
Absolutely. So, I'm here for it. I'm queer for it. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So we're here to talk about this. The season just started. Yeah. So we mentioned how familiar we are. We watched the shit out of season 1.
Yeah.
We watched all of Game of Thrones.
Did you do a season 1 rewatch before?
I did not, but I did watch a recap. I had to after, because I was watching the episode and I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So much happens.
Lots of characters. When I first watched Game of Thrones season 1, and I'm circling back, but I binged that season on like a week of class. I like skipped 2 whole days of class just because I was
fucking
like,
Christ.
I think so. At least one whole day. Damn. And I was like, this is amazing. I was so hooked. But then I was like, I still don't really know who any of these people are, so I had to like rewatch. And once I rewatched season 1, I was like, got it. I know all the players. Yeah,
I think that happened with me too, because I similarly I watched all of season 1 in probably about a day or 2.
Yeah.
I was a responsible student, and I just stayed up until like 4 a.m. to watch, and then drove to school.
Hey man,
tired as hell.
We had a 2 absence policy. I used that every trimester.
But I agree. It wasn't until I rewatched the show with Katie that I feel like I got comfortable with like who are the main players, right?
Right.
And I think this show is a little bit better in that sense because you really only have 2 players.
Yes.
You have the High Towers and you have the
Blacks and the Greens.
You have the Blacks and the Greens, right?
Yeah.
Which even in Game of Thrones, like, you primarily have the Lannisters
and the Starks,
and then the Targaryens start to inch in, but then you also start getting like the other houses really, really like sticking their fingers in that honeypot.
By season 2, and inappropriately, that's when the War of the 5 Kings starts. But that's where the directions really do like splinter.
Yeah.
But still, I think I did need a rewatch, not so much to remember characters, but just so much to remember, like, kind of specifics that happened. I did mine around spring break of this year.
Okay.
I did a rewatch of House of the Dragon.
It was Screen Crush has a really good recap video where they talked about, like, just like the broad...
The shit that went down. The shit that
went down. And surprising amount of shit goes down in one season.
Yes.
But it's all very digestible, I think, which is great.
I like the time jumps. We're probably not going to get any more. I don't need any more.
No.
I thought the time jumps helped in season 1.
And it helps because we also, like, if this had started... There's no way you can draw this out long enough to not have time jumps.
No.
But
But then they also show that, like, okay, so, like, this problem is festering.
For sure.
Like a sore or
Yeah.
a wound. Or
And
a
you also get a
cadaverous
good
king's
chance.
body.
You also get a good chance to, like, get to know the main players from, like, an earlier time.
Yeah.
Which is really good for getting to know Rhaenyra,
Yeah.
like what she's all about, Alicent, what she's all about, but also especially like the kids.
Yeah. And now in this season is when we're really starting to get to know the kids. Like we saw them and we saw them jump in time.
We did, but even then, even getting a few episodes of them as kids, seeing like what their gripes were, like what their insecurities are.
Yep.
Like it really now when we're in season 2, it lets us focus on that.
Yeah.
They could have easily started with like a recap, not a recap, but like a condensed version of like everything that happened in season 1 and start basically here.
Right.
Or after the time jump, the big 20-year time jump.
Right.
And go from there. But I feel like them taking like half the season to really like flesh out those characters in their youth.
Yeah.
Does a lot of heavy lifting for this.
And it's so much fun because so the last season or the last part of like the young actors, the young Millie Alcock and then I'm forgetting her name.
Olivia Cook?
Not Olivia Cook. The young.
Oh, the young one. I
yes,
cannot remember her
I follow
name.
her on Instagram. She's quite funny, actually. Anyway, but the last episode with them is Rhaenyra's wedding.
Yes.
Where Kristen Murderface Cole just goes like ham.
Emily Carey.
Emily Carey, that's right. And then it ends on just that like dour note where they have the wedding right there that night because a straight up murder just took place.
That straight up murder just took place.
And then you're like, and then the next episode is the jump, and you're like, to me, I felt like, oh shit, these characters had to live with this like awkward, unsettled tension for just like years. And granted, they do have the luxury of being able to go back and forth between different castles, so there might be stretches of years where they don't see each other. But like, yeah, fuck that.
Fuck that, indeed.
Fuck that.
So like, let's go really quick. So like, we know where we are in the story. This is. Season 1 basically ends with the biggest event is Chomp.
Yes.
Right?
Tyranitar used Crunch.
And it is very effective on Lucerys, right? Because like one thing that I found kind of fascinating about that is the way that I heard described was like the book is very like third person account.
Yes, it's a historian. It's from the perspective of a historian who's not necessarily friendly to Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
So it's an unreliable narrator.
For sure.
Yep.
And I like the idea that kind of like, well, what happens in the book is not necessarily like what we're going to see.
Exactly.
And I think that lends for some like creative liberties.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we know for a fact that like the death of Lucerys was not like a...
It was not intentional.
It was not intentional. It was legitimately he fucked up.
Right.
Like, Aemon got too cocky. Vhagar was like, I'm gonna do what I want.
Vhagar is the hoary old bitch.
So, like, that's kind of cool. And I love the fact that, like, this whole series is just constant oopsies.
Right.
And, like, it sounds stupid to be like, it's all oopsies, but it's literally
World War I.
a series of oopsies.
World War I was the spark that ignited the powder keg was a series of oopsies.
A series of oopsies.
One day's worth of oopsies, but...
Yeah, for
oopsies.
sure. But this, like, I like the idea that, like, fucking, what's his name, Viserys? Right?
The old
king?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, Rhaenyra, you're going to be my thing, and you're going to have a boy named Aegon or whatever.
Right.
And then he just has an oopsie, and he mistakes...
he mistakes... he says Aegon in bed.
And Alicent hears that and goes, he wants my kid, Aegon, to be the king. Exactly. So, series of oopsies.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just right now in this episode, we have a huge oopsie.
Right.
In the escalation at the end of this episode, right?
With but now, did you know that those characters were named Blood and Cheese just from watching, or is that something that you picked up?
That's something that I just saw like being talked about. Yeah. I don't think they ever explicitly.
No, in fact, I think the subtitle is just called One of Them Cheese. I've never read Fire and Blood. I had watched. Do you know who Alt Shift X is?
No.
So Alt Shift X was this YouTuber who would explain a lot of like the George R. R. Martin lore. He did a very good job. And then actually Game of Thrones itself, like HBO would hire their actors to do these like animated like videos going over like the lore and histories of Westeros.
That's cool.
And one of them is like the Dance of Dragons. Mm-hmm. So like I had watched and listened to those. Mm. So it's interesting, like not only is the entire plot of like this show like spoiled in the book.
Yeah.
When I say spoiled, I mean like already written.
Yeah.
But like HBO itself has already done like condensed narrative versions of like what happened.
And all the shit's out there, which is kind of like the nice thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's that idea of, well, what's in this book is unreliable, and now what we're watching, I feel like we can take that almost as like this is the actual canon version.
Well, and that's what's also nice about this show, because to compare it to the original one more time, it's smaller in scale, right? You just have the blacks and the greens, right? Don't have all the factions. Don't have as much like magic and like weird shit going on.
Yeah.
Right yet.
I mean, the craziest we get with magic is the dragons.
Exactly. But there's like this episode alluded to death beyond the wall.
Sure.
Right. But the other thing is also like there's not really like room to theorize, because like the book is written. So to me, I feel like, you know, it makes for an easier job like making the show, but also an easier job enjoying the show, because like I don't have to worry about how they're gonna end this. I just know that like there's a story, and yeah, they're probably gonna make like some deviations, but like the plot is pretty much there. I can just watch and I can enjoy an adaptation.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm very happy with the episode. Let's get into it.
Yep.
So our main players who are still in are for sure Rhaenyra. Yep. Damon always, you know, I know he's always portrayed as like really loving his wife.
Yeah, but he's also a piece of shit.
But I think it's just the fact that it's Matt Smith. He looks weaselly.
But he looks like a Targaryen.
He looks, and I know the blonde hair does a lot of heavy lifting, like the platinum blonde hair.
But his face,
his facial features like are also very Targaryen, very good. Alicent is, of course, like on the other side, a huge player that like we cannot overlook is Otto.
Yep.
Because like he's also like conniving as shit.
Yep.
We have King Aegon.
Yeah. Aemond One-Eye.
Aemond, the One-Eyed. Right. He straight up looks like an anime villain, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like with that scene in episode 9 or whatever, where he reveals his sapphire eye.
What's this actor's name?
He's on here. Aemon?
Yeah, Ewan Mitchell Prince.
Yeah.
He looks like a Targaryen.
He looks like a Targaryen.
Yeah, you got Queen Helena.
Yeah. Yep. Who, listen, I kind of love her.
Yeah, she's fun.
Like she's funny, she's quirky, and like she just does not deserve anything that's happening to her.
No.
She's just a simple girl who gets visions.
My favorite line from this episode, I think. Oh, by the way, spoilers. But I think for every House of the Dragon episode we record, I'm going to come out and say it. If you're listening to a podcast review on the episode and you haven't seen the episode...
Yeah, no, you're asking for it.
I don't care if we record it Sunday night and it's up Monday morning. You're stupid.
Yeah.
So, spoiler warnings, no more.
Listen, we're getting into it. We're not talking about spoilers in this. We're not...
yes. I think my favorite line is when, like, she gives her prediction about the rats. and then Aegon's like, the workings of the queen are always an enigma.
I love that line.
Yeah.
And it stood out to me because it felt the most sitcom-y.
Yeah.
Like, the way it was framed, it's like, if you think about the shot, it's a super wide angle. Yeah. You have one of, like, the handmaids over here, another one over here, the queen's in the middle with the kids, and he's just, like, by the door, like, the queen's mind is an enigma. It's so... It felt out of place, but it got a big laugh out of it.
It got a big laugh. I read it as him. I read it as really just, like, largely just emphasizing his lack of wisdom and everybody's lack of wisdom. Because, like, I mean, I know we're the viewers, so we should be more privy to this stuff, but, like, after her, like, one eye shit and the beast through the floor shit and now, like, this rat shit, I'd be like, oh, maybe we should listen to
maybe she's got a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, but she serves more like not a surrogate, but like she serves like a purpose for the viewer.
She's Cassandra from mythology.
Sure.
Yes.
And like we know to be on the lookout for pretty much anything she says.
Correct.
So like I can't fault necessarily like the characters in the show for like disregarding her crazy antics.
No.
But I just think it's kind of funny. One thing that I thought was always kind of funny about this series is that, like, it seems like the women are always the ones, and this is definitely like purposeful. I feel like George, when he wrote this series, he almost made it a point that like the women are the most level-headed.
Yeah.
Because like very rarely do you see the women like fully lose their shit. Like I know Danny was impulsive.
Correct.
But, like, in her impulsiveness was for, like, a purpose.
Are you talking about season 8 Danny?
Not even season 8, like...
Just Danny.
Just Danny in general. Like, she would do some ruthless shit.
And she also... I think she earned her ability to be impulsive.
For sure.
Like, she had to claw her way up to, like, getting dragons.
Oh, and that's kind of the thing, right? Like, you're not going to take over the kingdom by playing it safe. You have to take risks.
Exactly.
Whereas in this, and, like, and even in Game of Thrones, like... all the male characters like would do some dumbass shit, and it was always like for the purpose of like either getting revenge or like taking power, and a lot of the times it was just like probably not the right call.
Well, there's this quote by Cersei in one of the Game of Thrones seasons, and I think she's talking to Tyrion, where she was saying like, you know, a man's greatest weakness is what's in between his legs. Right? Because that's what, you know, it's kind of what men think with.
Yeah.
And that's how... So early on, one of the first scenes, Rhaenys flies back right, on her dragon. And then Daemon's like, all right.
Let's go fuck him up. Go.
And I would be like, excuse me. This is, you come home from the long grocery trip. You've got 5 bags in one hand, 5 bags in the... You went to 2 grocery stores.
Yeah.
And then whoever's at home was like, all right, time to go to the bank. I'm like, excuse me?
At least let me use the bathroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like... I mean, it's what she said. She's like... She can't... Like, Rhaenyra hasn't even mourned yet.
Yeah.
Like, you're expecting her to make this, like, rash decision... before she even has time to process what the fuck happened.
Right.
Which again just goes to show like it's the women who are like we need to make sure we're not making dumbass mistakes.
But then that just shows how actually emotionally fragile the men are.
1000%.
Because now we can pivot to Otto real quick. But like not so much a particular scene, but his endgame. Like, he's been trying to get his heir on the throne for, like...
for fucking ever.
But then if you step back and look at it, it's like, all right, buddy, like, you reached your peak. Like, you're just gonna be, like... It doesn't get any better for you, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever security you have. Your life now is just gonna be a perpetual state.
Yeah.
Of, like, having to manage the throne, right? So... While, yes, like, it certainly does help your house to, you know, to have access to the crown, you've also now made your house, like, the biggest target in the realm.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, historically, like, so I think one of the things that's overlooked is Rhaenyra's mom is not a Targaryen, she's an Arryn.
Yeah.
Right? So they're allies, but still, like, they're not a major player in the show yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you're fighting and clawing for some security that is going to be constantly stressful.
For sure.
And then, I mean, as soon as your kids have grandkids and marry somebody else.
Yeah.
Right, then, you know.
Then that's out.
That's out.
Your line's out.
And it's all for just the male, like, the male ego.
It's all the male ego.
Maybe it's appropriate that Hightower is the most phallic one.
Speaking of Otto, though, I do find it funny. So, like, we had that scene early in the episode where they're at the small council.
Yeah.
And like Aegon is just like not taking this seriously.
Yeah.
Like he brings his dumbass kid.
Oh, this was so funny.
Have you seen that video? It just went viral a couple weeks ago of some dude talking about some like really heinous shit. Like they want to like pass some bills in the Senate or whatever it was. It's like nasty shit.
And his
kids in the back like making faces.
Yes.
That's what this reminds me of.
I wanted that prince's name is Jacaerys.
Jacaerys.
Or Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys is his name.
Is it Jaehaerys?
He's named after the grandfather. Yeah, Jaehaerys.
Yes.
Jacaerys is
Rhaenyra's other kid, Jace, right?
Yeah. I was like, I fucking want this kid to die. Right? And granted, I walked into this episode knowing about Blood and Cheese, right? I knew they were characters who did some shit. I had forgotten what side they were on. I knew they were going to be in this season.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, someone needs to fucking kill this kid.
This kid has got to go.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean,
nah.
But I mean, and it's the idea. Like this is one of those scenes where like you get an inkling that like he really is like an idiot.
Aegon.
Yeah. Right? Because like he's like threatening his guy basically by telling him like give my kid a pony ride.
Right.
And like just making these like random rash decisions, like making Aemon like a member of the council because he's my best sword. I'm like, well, make him something with the guard or something. I don't know. He doesn't need to be a member of your thing. But then there's a bit of a contrast when he's actually on the throne.
Yeah.
Listening to like the small folk.
And that's how I love the way House of the Dragon. I don't know if power creeping is the right word. Power scaling, perhaps.
Sure.
Because like you see a young idiot king take the throne, and you obviously immediately think of
Joffrey.
And then you're like, all right.
He's going to be a piece of shit.
And it would be boring if we just did Joffrey over again. Mm-hmm. But it's not just, like, he is comparably stupid. But, like, when the small people come...
I wouldn't say stupid. I think he's more naive.
Naive. That's right? A better word. That's
Whereas
a better
word. I feel like Joffrey was stupid.
Idiot. He's the vicious idiot king.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right? But yeah, like, with Aegon, like, I was watching that scene and I was like, he's not that bad of a guy.
No.
And
I mean, Joffrey would just say, fuck you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And granted, what he is doing is irresponsible for the kingdom. Yeah. Right? Like, you're not going to be able to feed your dragons if you're not taking sheep from the commoners.
But he woke up this morning. He's like, all right, let's help some people.
Yeah. But then it's up to Otto to be like, whoa, buddy, pump the fucking brakes. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, I kind of like that idea that, like... Well, I don't know. I don't know how much I do like it or how much I don't like it. Because I feel like in this show, there's definitely, like, your good guys and your bad guys. You want to root for Rhaenyra.
Oh.
But then, like, they are also making some points that you're like, maybe not everybody... Because, like, even last season, we had a few... like scenes where he was like, I don't want to be king. He fucking ran away when his dad died and he was supposed to take, ownership of the throne. And that's when we start getting like Aemon being like, I'll take the fucking throne.
So this is where I think, this is where I do kind of wish I read the book. But from what I gather, the book itself is definitely more neutral in terms of blacks or greens.
Kind of.
People who have read the book feel like HBO's marketing has been more pro blacks.
Oh, absolutely.
But even the people, like when you watch like the videos and the promos, they do emphasize that they really do want heroes and villains on both sides.
They do, but even then, like right now, I think the closest we've gotten to like a villain in the blacks is Daemon.
Yeah.
Right? But even then, he's not a villain.
He's a lovable villain.
But even that, like calling him a villain seems disingenuous, right? Because like, he's brutal.
Yeah.
And he is conniving, but he's doing it out of like necessity because they took something from his wife. Right?
I think the blacks are undeniably the protagonists.
Yes.
However, I do think there is enough messy so far, and I think there's going to continue to be even more messy, where I do feel like both sides, maybe they won't like gain your sympathy, but both sides will find ways to like lose your sympathy.
Yeah, but I feel like right now, especially, and again, we're early in the season, so I don't know, but like they are doing more, I don't want to say damage, but kind of damage to like the Greens, because there's a lot of infighting kind of going on.
Yeah, there's factions within the factions.
There's factions within the factions. I mean, you have, Otto right there, like we said, like he's on that side, but he's his own player, right? Like you have Aemon, who is like, he wants that throne. How far he'll go to get that throne, you know?
Who's your favorite Green?
My favorite Green? I mean, dude, Olivia cooks out.
She's looking good.
I mean, I like Otto because he's like so like precise. Like he's very schemy. I don't know that I have a favorite.
Part of like season 1, like there are many points where I felt in season 1 where like Otto could have stopped and just like
be chill.
Yes. And that he actively like chose to escalate things. That's why like I think he's a great character. I'll have like that kind of antipathy towards Otto. My favorite Green might be Aemond, simply because like I guess I just have to respect like, you took my eye, fuck you, I'm gonna climb this dragon. I'm gonna climb the biggest dragon.
Yeah. and like I said, like they have done some like they've done a lot of really good work to humanize the Greens.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I still primarily view them as like the antagonists, right? And I think that's purposeful in the show. But like, you can't fully like hate on everyone, because you have characters like Elena, you have characters like Aegon, who does show like he does have good in him.
And you have like, and I think all of them, like even if you don't have characters, like you have moments like where you're like, Aegon's naive and stupid, but
he wants to be a good king.
Yes.
He wants to serve his people
exactly
in return, right?
Yeah. And Aemon's ruthless and escalated this shit more than it needed to be, but he's highly competent.
He's highly competent, and also like you have to remember that like what happened with him in season 1 like does inform a lot of what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because like they were fucking assholes to him.
They were assholes.
They gave him the pig.
Like,
we got a dragon for you. Here's the pig.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can understand why he's as jaded as he is.
I think a point that's often overlooked about that scene, because not only was he humiliated by his cousins or nephews, excuse me, but like his brother, I think, is often, I even forget this, but like Aegon and Jace and Luke were the ones who were like, let's go fuck with him.
Let's go fuck with him.
So like, not only like were you embarrassed by your like younger nephews, but like you were embarrassed by your brother.
Yeah.
What did you think of the scene of Alicent in the set?
So I just think this adds to like the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Of like her character and also fucking Sir Kristen.
Yeah.
Because like all of last season, they're like, fuck you, Rhaenyra, you whore.
Every woman is made in the image of the mother.
Exactly. And then she's like, yum, slip away. So you're like, all right, like it's that shit that like just immediately brings a character down like 5 or 6 pegs.
Yeah.
Where you're like, at least if she was like a preachy bitch, she'd be like, all right, she stinks to her guns.
Right.
But now she's just like a hypocritical person, and you're like, all right, you fucking suck.
She's a hypocritical person who's been pulled from like many angles.
She has, but that's not an excuse. Because then,
no, it's
like,
not an excuse.
Like, at least if she was sticking to her convictions, you could be like, well, yeah, you're doing not great things. You know, you still, you know, usurped the throne from your best friend.
Yeah.
But at least, you know, you have a leg to stand on. Where like now it really does feel like her convictions have been out the window.
I think you're going to be able to say that for every character by the show's end.
Probably.
That yeah, but it's not an excuse.
Oh, for sure.
Which I'm here for.
That's Game of Thrones, baby.
Game of Thrones.
It's Game of Thrones. Yeah. Hey, did Rob need to break his oath?
No. Nope. But
Nope.
He did it for all.
But so that's not an excuse.
Exactly.
He may not have loved Walder Frey's daughter.
Yep.
The other girl may have been hotter.
Right.
That's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
There you go.
Did we have to kill all the Starks in our hall, even though the oath is broken? Not an excuse.
Not an excuse. They broke the oath,
Yeah.
but it's not an excuse, right? So I don't know. I've it's just like that character of Sir Kristen. Is I saying that right?
Sir Kristen.
Right?
Yeah.
He's such a petty little man.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me.
He is. I think one of the directors or the showrunner. I can't remember who, but in one of the promos, they called him the worst person in King's Landing right now. So the showrunners really feel like he's truly very awful. He's petty. He's definitely an incel, right?
Oh, for sure.
Easily bruised. I keep thinking about. So in season 1, there's a scene when he and Rhaenyra do it, and then she's like taking off his armor, right? And it's that very like sensual music, and that's like a moment for like vulnerability for him because like he is like there is the questionable element of like the power dynamic where it's like this is the princess like telling you to basically get naked.
Yeah,
right?
like
So
it's hard to argue.
it's like that's shady, right? Once again,
Yeah.
not an excuse. But then there's this scene where he has Alicent to like redress him. So it's like he's reclaimed. He's shed all this vulnerability. He's like reclaimed this like power and agency for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like emerged from the cocoon as like such an asshole.
Yeah, and it's honestly it's
Yeah.
kind of weird to me how like you are the knight, but you're having like not the queen, but like the queen's mother or the king's mother
Yeah.
dress you.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you're taking her down a peg.
It's a weird. You're taking her down a peg. It's a weird like. I don't know if peacocking is the right word, but it's a type of acting where you're like, I need your assistance to dress myself. Like I'm bold enough to like continually break my vows as a knight and like do something that like if people found out like I could be killed for.
For sure.
And after she said, like, we should do this again, like, after tonight, and be like, okay, dress me back up again. Like,
I also love the idea that, like, Alicent looks at her and she goes, all right, we're not doing this ever again.
yeah.
Put a pin on that.
Can you imagine, like, hooking up with someone after the throes of pleasure, like, having her dress you? Like...
But we're never doing that again.
I know.
So all right, so following all of this whole stuff, like we finally get Rhaenyra like mourning her kid.
Yeah.
She finds the dragon wing, which is also it's like a double whammy because we have her upset, but then also her dragon is also Lucerys's dragon's mother.
Is that confirmed?
I believe so.
They have similar sounding names. Because hers is C-Rex and his was A-Rex.
Yeah, I believe it is the mother. So like you have that dynamic of both mothers are now they have confirmation that like their kids are dead.
Is that her one line in this episode?
Where she says I want
Aemon Targaryen.
I believe so.
That's kind of cool.
It is. It's like boss like lady boss attitude for sure. But so like that leads to her saying like I want Aemon.
Right.
And I want to point out she does not say I want Aemon dead.
She just wants
I want you to kill him. She says I want him.
Right.
What you do with that interpretation, I guess, is kind of
Well, it's interesting where. So then that leads to Daemon wearing the murder hoodie.
Daemon putting on his best Darth Kermit.
I really hope that anytime he schemes,
He puts on the Darth Kermit.
he puts on the Darth Kermit robe.
One of the funniest things to me though is like he puts it on. You can tell who he is.
Oh, absolutely.
And like there was an episode in season 1 where like both him and Rhaenyra go out like essentially clubbing.
Yeah.
And they're like dressed in like secret, and I'm like, buddy, who the fuck else has platinum blonde hair?
Now he did have short hair then, but correct.
But still.
So it does make me, and I guess this is, I think this is something that we'll just always have to suspend our belief in with anything like a Game of Thrones. Because here's where I was curious. Because at the end of season 1, she finds out that something happened to Lucerys. I took that final shot as she like, oh, she found out that he's dead.
So she did.
Yes. And then that's where I was surprised that like this season picks up like right after. Because I mean, it can't have been like, it's been days, but probably like less than a week that she's been like going around
looking.
Yeah.
I would say maybe a little bit less than a month.
Yeah.
Because then there's also like we open, like we mentioned briefly, but we opened the episode at the wall.
Right.
With Jace talking to the Stark boy.
Yeah.
Basically telling him like, hey, you know, you have your oath to keep, right? And that's when they get the Raven.
Yep.
Right? And like, so that had to have been, the boy needed to have died.
Yeah.
They needed to.
News needed to get to, somehow news, even though it was happening like a rainstorm, somehow news got to Rhaenyra that like the boy died.
Yeah, so it's got to be more than a week, I think.
Exactly. But like it is, like the way that like information travels and like characters learn things is just always, I feel like is always going to have some like inconsistency about it. Like you saw it at its worst in like in the final seasons of
For sure.
Game of Thrones with go run back to the go run back to the wall. Tell Daenerys we need help. But yeah, we're thrown, we are thrown just like right into the aftermath. And it's gonna be all escalation.
For sure.
But yeah, and you mentioned she doesn't say I want Aemon dead. She
just says I want Aemon, and that could be
here.
He comes to me, and we have have him explain what happened.
Right.
Maybe we can figure this out. It could be maybe I want him here so that I can kill him. Who knows?
Or maybe he doesn't want his head on a platter.
Maybe.
Right? Yeah.
Right? And granted, maybe that is her. That's her bad.
Right.
But like Aemon's like, all right, let's get this taken care of.
Daemon.
We're going to.
Yeah.
Daemon, yeah.
And he's the one who says a son for a son.
He's the one who says a son for a son. It's not hers.
Which then makes you wonder, okay, so because then Blood and Cheese ask, they're like, okay, what if we can't find him? And then the camera cuts. So you never really hear like what his answer is.
I missed that. I was thinking about it. I'm like, did I specifically hear him say like I want Aemon? I could not recall.
He sends them to look for Aemon.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
like, what if we can't find him? And then the camera cuts.
Gotcha.
So I think that's where I got into this like train of like how information passes, because like you mentioned she just wants her one thing. Daemon interprets that how he wants to interpret that, and then he leaves it to the cutthroats to interpret that like so it's cool to see not only how like these events are spiraling out of control, but how they're specifically spiraling out of control out of the hands of like the major players. Like once Daemon gives that directive, then things are out of Rhaenyra's control, and then once he gives a directive to like, you know,
the two guys,
a bad cop and a
worse cop,
and a worse cop, right? Yeah, you know, then the poison really like
for sure
festers.
And I think it's going to be very interesting going forward, like how this is going to continue to spiral out of control, like the escalation.
Yeah,
because like you went from like two kids who had some beef with each other.
Yep.
Like that went from like I'm gonna take your eye to I killed you.
Yeah.
To now to like, hey, I'm gonna kill the other kid to I'm gonna kill your fucking grandkid.
Yeah.
Like a baby, essentially.
Yeah.
And so like this is like you are exponentially escalating this event here.
It's
like that's a J scale if I've ever fucking seen one.
I was watching season 4 of The Chosen. And then the Apostle Thomas is going to propose to his like girlfriend, and he gets her a sundial, and he's like, "I traded a bun for like a fish for something, and then for this sundial." And it's like, ah, damn, the barter system, working your way up is amazing. This is the reverse of that.
The
It's
barter
like,
system is nuts.
the barter system is nuts. So is the reverse. So is the revenge barter system. An eye for a son
An eye for a son?
for a little boy.
For sure.
Yeah.
So with that out of the way, so all right, so the little boy gets killed, and that leads. We end the episode with Lena grabbing her girl, running down the hall, and it's. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's a tracking shot. It just follows her the whole time. I think.
Ooh.
I think.
I can see.
I can't remember, but like it's just she's just like having a freak out, running, and she goes to her mom. And what's mom doing?
Oh yeah, she's
banging. She's climbing trees.
Yeah.
She's climbing the coal tree,
Right.
and she's just like, the boy's dead, and the mom is like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it shouldn't be funny, but there's something comical about like her getting probably some of the worst news you could possibly get while you are
doing the thing that you said you
A, the thing that you're not supposed to do.
Right.
B, your daughter's the one that catches you doing this.
Yeah.
It's kind of fucking nuts.
It is interesting. So there's I forget if Alicent or Otto is the one who walks in on Aegon jerking it outside the window when he's like teenage Aegon.
Oh.
But then after Aegon rapes one of his handmaidens, as well as adult Aegon, Alicent is definitely the one who like walks into his room, pulls off the sheets from him, and he's like laying there like butt ass naked. And she's telling him to get up, and then she's yelling at him for sucking.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how I feel like there has to be some intentionality behind it, but like how often like this family like runs into each other naked. Like even though there's so much like factioning, there's also no like boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, they're just constantly intruding on one another.
Yeah, and that feels purposeful.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole family like they're like most incest babies.
Yeah.
For the most part, right?
Yep.
Like Alicent, I feel like is the biggest separation there.
Well, because she's clearly
not a Targaryen, right?
Yeah.
But like everybody else is like it's just a flat circle.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see where this goes. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not excited to see where this goes because a lot of people are not tuning in.
So I'll be curious to see what the streaming stats are if and when those are ever released. But I think this is a great conversation. Do we purely blame the 2-year hiatus?
I think it doesn't help.
I think that's the biggest.
It's kind of great, and I know that like. So like when Netflix shows, it's different because like Netflix will do what they can to like get everything filmed, get everything done, and then they have to get everything translated. I found out that apparently like they get everything translated first, which could take months to do.
Oh wow!
And then once they have everything, then they release everything as a binge, right?
Mm.
But like HBO, they don't have to do that.
Yeah.
But they still decided they were going to take 2 full years.
So
I know that it's hard for that because they shoot on location.
Was this a casualty of any of the strikes? Or was there always a plan to do 2 years?
No. So this, they did say that because this is filmed primarily in the UK, they use and a lot of the actors, they use a different contract company for their union. They did not need to stop production.
Gotcha.
So if they were a US production, then this would have been probably a 3-year wait.
Wow. That would have been insane.
That would have been fucking nuts.
So we're going to talk about Dan in 2 episodes in a row. He had put out like his How to Fix the MCU episode a while ago. He just put out like, if I was in charge of Lucasfilm, this is what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, in both of them, he basically recommended like scaling back, focus on quality instead of like quality over quantity, right? Which I think the Game of Thrones verse has kind of, I don't think it's fully committed to yet, but like I think the Jon Snow, spin-off is officially like nixed.
Yeah.
I think the only one that's like really moving forward is the Duncan Egg one.
The Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
Yes.
Yeah. That one they just talked about, they started production on it.
And I think if anything, this really is a franchise where you really could just do like one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But given with that though, I don't know why we can't just do one thing at a time year by year instead of like these long breaks between them.
So one of the things that they've mentioned was that kind of went away when they got rid of the writers' rooms. Because they just make one person kind of do everything.
Yeah.
And it's like a double-edged sword. Like in one way you have consistency, but then on the other end, well, you're restricted by what one person can really do for the most part, right? Like, yeah, they might have some people help out, but that's also been impacting a lot of that. And it's cheaper for the studios.
How much cheaper is it?
I mean, with this type of show, it's really not. It's like a drop in the bucket, I feel.
Yeah.
Because they're spending millions and millions of dollars on the entire season.
Oh, and that's the thing. If there does seem to be some level of quality control, where we're like, yeah, this Jon Snow story isn't going to work, we're scrapping it, right? So if they do care, hey, if you feel like you've got other good stories in there, like why not make it so you can go year by year? So then you could do this, right? And then be like, all right, and now once this is done, we're gonna start Duncan Egg.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know.
It's above my pay grade, but
for sure. But I really do think it's impacting a lot. I mean, it's already bad when you have movies with a sequel that comes out like 3-4 years after, because you lose a lot of the audience, right? Like people start watching other things right now. Not unfortunate. Fortunate for us, I guess. There's a lot of really good TV out there,
right?
So like people will find things that they want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it means that then they become fans of something else and yours wanes off, then that's on you.
Yeah, for not staying
right?
in the.
And like we've had that issue, right? We were talking about The Boys. Like, yeah, I was excited kind of to watch season 4, but like it took willpower for me to be like, I gotta sit down. I need to make time to watch this. I wasn't like with Game of Thrones and like season 2 premiere of like House of the Dragon, where I was like, oh, I'm going to pause what I'm doing to watch this, right? And like I feel like if it was any other show besides Hot D, I'd have been like, I'll watch sometime this week.
Exactly.
Like Acolyte. Acolyte was out yesterday.
Yep.
I could have watched it last night. I watched wrestling. I could have watched it this morning.
Brushed your teeth.
Not even. Yeah, well, yes, but like
I brush his teeth. Everybody.
I talked to my mom for an hour instead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, you need the quality to maintain that, and like even it's proved that like even Hot D is not immune to that.
No.
So we'll see what the streaming numbers look like when those come out in a couple of weeks, because it's usually like I think the Nielsen ratings will kind of prove that, unless HBO comes out with like the streaming numbers for Max.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, everybody.
Good start to the season.
Good start to the season. I don't know how we'll do this. Maybe we'll touch base on this show every couple of episodes. Maybe we'll do a big end of the season thing.
Yeah.
Thanos got a very busy schedule coming up.
Just a little bit.
Just a wee bit. Just a wee bit. All right, everybody. This episode will come out very soon. Probably tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll try to catch But we just had our Omen episode, so if
our Omen episode's out.
So if you're in,
sounds great.
Yes.
The audio quality, this thing has been good.
So once you've gotten your fix of these two sultry voices,
hell yeah,
throw yourselves into the bowels of the pleasure den of.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, everybody. We'll be back later. Until next time, he has been Thano.
He has been Javier.
This has been the Cine-Scoots TV show.
Yes. Bye.